Hello, and because Mike Rooney is not here, I'm going to refer to this as the 35 minutes of purgatory that we call D1Baseball Podcast. I am your fill-in host, Joe Healy, listed here as Cut and Shoot's finest. I am joined today by Drew Burris as caddy, Kendall Rogers, and someone who just hopes everyone has a little fun this weekend. I'll add to that, I hope they get a lot of fresh air and good exercise. He is Steven Schoch. Welcome, fellas. It's going to be a little bit of a different deal for listeners here today, but I hope we just have fun.
I'm with you. I think this episode should be very down the middle. We will not get too good, but we won't get too low. Just right in the middle, even keeled.
Steady heartbeat. This trio.
That's right.
Of course.
Normally, Runes does an inane banter. I don't have anything specific. However, my friend and yours, Christian Naro, put in our internal WhatsApp chat the final top 20. Our last time we had a top 25 on a leap day, because today, as we record this, is leap day. And so I'm kind of perusing that, and there's some interesting stuff there that gives you an idea of just how long ago this was. First of all, this was like one of the last top 25s before COVID shut everything down. So, you know, that was a tough one. I don't know if you guys remember COVID, but that was a thing. Long Beach State was ranked 25th. Shout out to the Dirtbags. Tennessee was ranked 24 because we didn't yet know they were Tennessee. So that's certainly interesting. Mississippi State was in the top 10. So was Louisville. Louisville's in the top 5. Georgia was number 4. So, shout out to Emerson Hancock. So yeah, just pretty different in a lot of ways. What a difference 4 years makes, but happy leap day, fellas.
Yeah. Thank you. Remember when Mississippi State and Ole Miss were both top 20 teams?
Yeah. Ole Miss number 15 in this ranking, Arizona State number 12. So what could have been for these teams in 2020?
It would have been a fun year. It certainly would have, I think. And I think Virginia, we were on the cusp. We were getting close. I don't know if we were ranked because I wasn't really checking, but I think we were getting close to it. You know, we had a great. We were coming off a really big weekend sweep of UMass Lowell that would have really tipped the scale,
tough.
I believe.
And then the Riverhawks.
Or it might have been a midweek game. We played NC State, then UMass Lowell. Then it was over.
There you go.
Yeah, you know, as you look back at kind of the teams on the list, I mean, the team that really is like front of mind for me in terms of like what could have been, and just really like the trajectory of this coach is Tracy Smith at Arizona State. I mean, Tracy Smith, if you look back at that 2020 team, I mean, they were loaded. They had Drew Swift, Spencer Torkelson, Trevor Halver, Gage Workman, Alika Williams. Like, these are not only high-end players, but for the most part, really high-end prospects. And, you know, this team was sitting at 13-4 when the season was shuttered that year. This is a club that I think could have gotten Omaha. I don't know if they would have quite had the pitching to win a national championship, but had they gotten Omaha, the Tracy Smith era at Arizona State might go way differently. I mean, there were some weird things going on between like the alums and Smith back then. Like it wasn't a great relationship, but I think if Arizona State gets to Omaha that year, I mean, they're obviously not parting ways with him like 2 years later, I don't think. So Arizona State to me is the one that comes to mind the most in terms of, clubs that could have really just changed the trajectory of their whole, situation. And right now they're still, they're better, but they're still trying to find their way back.
Yeah. No, it's a great point. I mean, there are other teams in this list, but most of them that you think of, that was a real missed opportunity. Still in the years after that, there was really nothing stopping Louisville, for example, from being a really good team or what have you. But with Arizona State, with all those guys who were 2020 draft picks, you kind of knew that it was now or never for them. It takes some time to build it back up. So that is interesting. We're going to preview the weekend here in just a second. But before we get to any of that, I have to let you know that this episode of the D1Baseball Podcast is brought to you by Pitch Logic, the system used by players, coaches, scouts, and instructors at all levels of play, from the youth leagues to the big leagues. The easy-to-use and affordable technology makes the platform accessible to every player at every level. All the metrics and features used at the highest level. See pitchlogic.com for more information. Take that, Runes. How about that for an ad read? That
was pretty good.
I actually, halfway through, I bought one because
wow.
So
wow.
Thank you, Joe Healy. I'm gonna now know that I do throw 78 with sync.
Yeah. And then offensively, you're going to start swinging at more strikes, taking more balls, and that's the key right there.
Yeah, the swing decisions, they're going up. They're going up
for sure.
In
sure.
terms of however hitters swing decisions traject positively, that's what's happening with it.
Right. However
Because
you
of
define
that.
right. Right. Yes. I don't know the terminology either, but yes, that's what's going to happen.
Joe's like, that sounds right on.
That sounds correct.
Yeah.
Interestingly, Steve is the most qualified to tell us what it is, though. Is the only one of us who played Division I baseball.
Yeah, it's essentially if a pitch is in the zone and you can hit it and you swing, you made a good swing decision. If it's out of the zone and you probably can't hit it, bad decision. That seems, I like to think, dumbest level possible.
Yeah,
and that's how I understand.
Steve, how many at bats do you have in your career? Do you have any?
I actually have one at bat, one swing, one pitch seen, one grounded into a double play.
Hey,
so
now.
One swing, two outs.
At least you made contact.
Yeah, made contact, walked right to the mound. Didn't even worry about it, I'm not beating that out. Not beating that out. Got to save some steps.
One at bat, 2/3 of an inning, that's maximum efficiency right there. All right, fellas. Here's what we're going to do. Here's the conceit of today's episode. We're basically, the three of us are going to be at some games this weekend. We're going to go around the horn and talk a little bit about what we're going to see in person. Once we do that, and of course, we'll all chime in on that. And then once we do that, we're going to go around and just talk about something else we have our eye on where we won't be personally to kind of chime in with that. So I'll start with Kendall. Kendall, what do you got this weekend? What are you looking forward to?
Yeah, I'll tell you what, man. We've got a good one. The Astros Foundation Classic, formerly known as the Shriners College Classic. This weekend you got Texas, LSU, Louisiana, Texas State, Houston. It's good. Vanderbilt, can't forget about Vanderbilt. It's just an outstanding tournament. I mean, I think you look at the opening game, like the opening night game with Texas and LSU. I think we're going to find out a lot about both these teams. Not necessarily enough to draw total conclusions here, but I mean, if you look at LSU, I think we had the discussion the other day on the pod that LSU might be a little bit on cruise control. Like we haven't seen their best. They've been a little up and down. It's been kind of a roller coasterish first couple of weeks for LSU. And I feel like if you look at the last couple of games, they've really started to get it going offensively. Stephen Milam is a guy that, Jay Johnson in the fall, honestly, really didn't even mention him much. He was kind of like in passing. And, he's gotten off to a terrific start. Barrett Jones has hit some tanks. Tommy White will be Tommy White. But I think the thing for me when I look at LSU going into the weekend is, who do they start tomorrow night against Texas? Do they finally make that Luke Coleman switch? Or do they go with Thatcher Hurd one more week? I mean, this is 2 weeks in a row that Thatcher has not looked very good. My hunch here is that they probably flip the switch to Holman against Texas, wanting something where they kind of know what they're going to get. But just seeing how LSU's pitching unfolds this weekend for Texas, LeBaron Johnson, obviously, I mean, he was great last year, guys, in the regional in Super last year. But how is he against what I think will be an elite LSU lineup this weekend? I think Vanderbilt, for me, we all know they have a lot of potential on the mound, but how do they pitch this weekend? And also offensively, that outburst they had against Indiana State where they scored 20 runs in the midweek, is that kind of the performance that gets this offense rolling a little bit going into the weekend? And then, Texas State we talked about from last week, but, I think Houston, Louisiana, these are both big weekends for those guys. Louisiana had a very odd first 2 games against Rice last weekend. Were just shut down, which really shocked me. But they've got really good arms. Jack Martinez on the front of their rotations, a really nice arm for them. So I'll be curious to see what they do this weekend against Houston. This is statement time for Houston. I feel like, and Joe knows this as well as anybody, that Houston's a proud program that we could count on being in a regional every single year, and we could count on being in the regional hosting mix every couple of years. And they've missed the postseason the last few years, and they finally feel like they have a team depth-wise and then positionally, and then on the mound to finally make that move. Jackson Jelkin, their ace on Friday nights, is up to 95, 96 with just a devastating slider when he is on. He's been really good so far. And I just think Houston, when they look at this weekend, I think they're looking to make a big statement, and I'll be very curious to see how they do.
I'm with you. LSU Texas Friday night, going to be great. The atmosphere is going to be electric. Those two teams, when they play in that Houston tournament, are the two teams that bring out the most fans. And so putting them together is a no-brainer for that first night. LeBaron Johnson's an interesting matchup. The LSU offense hasn't put it all together yet. They've had some nice individual performances, but let's not forget, it was just 2 weeks ago they scored a total of 6 runs in 2 games against Central Arkansas. Yeah. Last weekend they scored 2 runs in a loss to Stony Brook. So this offense is not immune from having a stinker of a game, and LeBaron Johnson will carve you up if you're not having a good game. So I think that's going to be a whole heck of a lot of fun in Houston. A lot to learn there. I agree with you wholeheartedly. Steve, you're going to be at what I believe they call the Reedy River rivalry, which is something you have to say really slow to not.
Say that 100 times.
Yeah, no kidding.
Yeah,
Steve, what do you got on that series? And just give us a preview there.
I think I'm gonna only refer to this as like the Palmetto series or something different than the 3 R's, because my reading, writing, and arithmetic, I can't sub out those 3 R's with something else about a river.
That's true.
Nothing against
the river. You're gonna get all twisted up.
Some things have to remain sacred in this world.
Look, I already got the dyslexia coming in there to party, so we don't need anything else. But Kendall, the thing I'm really excited about the tournament you're going to be at is the fact that the home runs there sound so much cooler than home runs anywhere else. It's like you're in the Grand Ole Opry and they are on stage. I remember the video of Ivan Melendez hitting a home run onto the train track. I think I made that sound my ringtone back in the day. It was just so good.
Yeah, it's way more majestic whenever somebody hits a home run off like at Minute Maid, how they have the big columns over the train tracks. Like when the ball bounces off that column, it's just a little bit more majestic than a regular home run.
And like the sound it makes, the clunk of it, and the crowd going, you love to see it. So that's always a great series. But with this Palmetto series, that I don't know if that's the name or if I'm just giving it, I like
that better. Just a Palmetto State battle or something. I don't know.
It just makes more sense. You know, the battle for the state that has really good golf. That's another good name for it. But either way, Clemson and South Carolina, I'm really excited for this because, of course, they're both in the top 25. We got Clemson at number 10 and South Carolina at number 12. So this is a really good matchup, just talent-wise, but also playing for state pride, playing for that, bragging rights all the rest of the season of the ACC versus the SEC. And, of course, who runs the state, because, there's no other schools in this state. There are. That's a joke. And the other schools are also very good at baseball too. So no one is becoming the politician of South Carolina based on this series, but the rights to it and the internal intrinsic value of it is there. And I'm just really excited because Cam Canarella and Will Taylor have been really coming along with Clemson. I know Will Taylor was struggling pretty heavily coming into last night's game or Tuesday night's game. And he had a bit of a coming out party, hitting 3 home runs. And I am expecting that to continue into this weekend, especially because, it's when the pressure is on that the best athletes perform the best. And this is a guy who, he used to play football. He stopped playing football to focus mainly on baseball. But I do believe that with the football background, a lot of players will be able to handle a lot more than the average, just playing college baseball player. Because you think about it, Will Taylor goes into a stadium with 50,000 people saying mean things about him. Now he's in a stadium with 10,000. That's a good reduction. I will take that. I would take that in a heartbeat. But then on the other side of it, you got a lot of talent in this South Carolina lineup where you guys got guys like Ethan Petrie, Talmadge LaCroix. You got Cole Messina behind the plate. You got a lot of reasons to be excited about them offensively. And on the mound, I think they continue to have guys step up and emerge on the bullpen side of things. I was really impressed with Ty Good, the transfer from the College of Charleston. He was the CAA Pitcher of the Year last year, in their final year of ever being the CAA before switching to the CAA. The Colonial to Coastal switch, of course, that's a big move. Everybody's going to remember where they were when that move was made. I was at the beach. That's actually how I found out. The Coast told me. It said, hey, Colonial out, Coastal in. But either way, I am very excited for this matchup because, again, the talent on the field is there, but also in the stands, the fans are going to be going nuts. It's one of the series where it's an in-state rivalry, 1 game played at Clemson, 1 game at South Carolina, 1 game at a neutral, which is just such a good way to grow the sport of baseball in general, because then you get alumni who live near Clemson that went to South Carolina. They want to come to the game. Then, of course, you pack the home field. I think ultimately I chose the Gamecocks to take this series. And that choice directly came from the fact that I've played in Founders Park on a Friday night, and the fans will they'll weigh an impact on the other team. I think playing in front of those fans gives a huge benefit to the Gamecocks. So that's what I'm most looking forward to.
I can't wait for, at the end of this series, whoever wins it, that gets to, quote, as you put it, Steve, run South Carolina, for Coastal Carolina to run onto the field at the end of it and just hit whoever wins over the head with a steel chair and then just claim the title for themselves. To me, that's the only way the weekend could really properly end,
Yeah, for sure. I will say this, like on a serious note, I think if you look at the series overall, I think the thing I'm looking forward to is to see how South Carolina's pitching does against Clemson. I thought South Carolina, from a pitching perspective, was a little bit of a question mark coming into the season. Frankly, when we discussed South Carolina as a top 25 team, a lot of people had them 12, 13, 14. We had them in the 20 to 25 range. And the biggest reason for that was, the uncertainty around Roman Kimball and the rest of that pitching staff. And so far, whether it's been Kimball or Eli Jones has had impeccable command so far. Their pitching's been really good for the most part. So I'll be curious to see if that trend continues. The level of competition steps up dramatically with Clemson, and we'll see, if they have the same amount of success on the mound. Tell you what, if they pitch at a high level this weekend, that makes me feel very good about South Carolina moving forward, as long as they can stay healthy, because we know they're going to hit.
I would generally agree. I think that's a great point there, because that is the primary concern with the Gamecocks.
Right.
That series, I'm just going to take to calling it the Pimento Cheese Classic, and that's just what I'm gonna, because that's one of my favorite exports from this part of the country is pimento cheese. Even though my body doesn't love it for me, but I will also be at Clemson, South Carolina. So I'm going to talk about the Frisco Classic, which has gone from a tournament at the start of the year that looked pretty good to now looks really good, because Alabama has played well. Indiana and DBU have come into the top 25. Arizona has won some big games early on this year, even though that the record is sitting at 4-4 now, so it hasn't been smooth sailing, but they've won some big games as well. I think that first of all, the game that I have kind of pegged is Alabama on Sunday playing DBU. If the rotation for DBU holds, that means Alabama would be facing James Ellwanger, who is the freshman arm for DBU, whose fastball goes up to about 100 miles an hour. How does Alabama handle that velocity? Bama also has not played a very good schedule so far. Last week, they won all 3 of their games against Valpo in 7 innings via the run rule. But I think that's good news for Alabama, because we had a lot of questions about their offense, and sure, the pitching hasn't been great, but they're doing what you expect them to do against teams like that. And they're mashing the baseball, and it's been a lot of newcomers. It's been Justin LeBron, the freshman shortstop. It's been, it's been Gage Miller. It's been TJ McCants, which, you got to be happy for TJ McCants to have this type of year, at least so far, given some of the struggles on the field, off the field for TJ in his time at Ole Miss. So I believe just about anything in terms of result here. I think all 4 teams have a chance to come out of this thing with I assume a championship belt, because I think that's what Peak is doing at all their tournaments. So somebody's coming out of here with a championship belt, obviously. And I would believe any of the 4 teams, just given the way they're playing right now.
I do love that the championship belt is coming out, but I do want to see championship suspenders, like for the auxiliaries. You know how, like, when they win the College World Series, the team gets the big trophy, everybody else gets the small little trophies. Right. I got a participation one in my closet, much smaller. I think suspenders is the way to do it.
Yep. That's the next thing for sure. They do have, for the MVP of the tournaments, I learned this last week, Steve, I don't know if you saw it in that area, a mini belt that like maybe fits around a bicep. Like,
it's the unrealistic body expectations of being the MVP. Know, it's
the mini belt sponsored by Ozempic.
Bobby Pierce won it last week in Jacksonville, and I'd love to know what Bobby Pierce is planning on doing with that. How do you display that? What's your idea behind that? I'm going to effort that whenever I see them. Ooh, a headband. I love it. I love it. So good weekend in Frisco, which is a good way. I'm sure Kendall would appreciate me saying this. If you've not already, make sure you subscribe to the streaming services we're doing through D1 Baseball. I'm a company man.
I
love
the
tournament this weekend.
Yeah, thank you.
We've got the Las Vegas tournament this weekend. And oh, by the way, don't overlook Battle at the Ballpark down in Sugar Land. Some really quality mid-major stuff. Creighton, Army, La Tech. Help me out, Kendall. Who am I missing?
Air Force.
That's it. Yeah, Air Force,
Yeah,
Army, La Tech. Creighton.
Yeah, it's going to be really interesting overall. You mentioned Frisco. Ryan Johnson for DBU, their Friday night starter. He's gotten off to just an amazing start. 20 strikeouts, 1 walk in 12 and a third innings. Grant J off to a really nice start for them. There's a lot of intrigue for me, Joe and Schoch, with the Vegas tournament too, because I think if you look at Cal. We had Cal kind of picked in the middle to the bottom half of the Pac-12, and Mike News Club's off to a really good start. Rodney Green is hitting for power. PJ Mutsaridis, a talented freshman's hitting well over 400. They think they're going to get EMA back eventually from an injury, potentially even next week. So things really looking up for Cal. Then Oklahoma, I saw them a couple weeks ago at Globe Life, and they certainly have a lot of pitching depth. But I think Cal, for me, is the team out in Vegas that I've got my eye on, because I think if Cal has a big weekend, I think they could very well end up in the top 25 next week.
Yeah, and it kind of it starts to change the perception of what they could be this season. I know Runes has talked about it a lot. The high-end talent at Cal is just about as good as anybody else in the country in terms of top 3 best players, best on best. They're right up there with anybody. But how good is the depth? Can they get some guys to step up? Can they find some role players along the way, and having a successful weekend this weekend, I think, would change a lot of how we view that team. Go ahead, Steve. I see your smile. Go ahead.
Yeah, I feel like Schoch is ready for some thoughts.
This is with Cal. Their catcher, Caleb Lamavita, is one of my favorite people in college baseball because he just mashes baseballs. He's a great hitter, but he's from Hawaii, and his Instagram handle is Brudda Caleb. Spelled Braddah Caleb, and that's his Twitter. It's universal for him. But looking at him, looking at his roster picture, this is the first time I've seen his roster. He looks like the friendliest person in the world. He looks like Brudda Caleb, So that's why I started laughing. But he's another guy I'm excited to see. But I'm also excited to see if Mike Rooney survives Vegas, or if Vegas survives Mike Rooney. That's the real question.
Great question.
Will his mattress end up on the top of a hotel?
Well, that's why Joe Healy's filling in, because Mike Rooney is currently at Caesar's Palace, right? That's right. That's what I believe is going on.
That's right. Where Caesar himself.
What happens in Vegas stays in Vegas.
Caleb Lomavita, great smile. Schoch is right about that. I said this on the air with Darren Vaught last weekend in Jacksonville, that I'm pro smile in the roster picture. I feel like there used to be this preconceived thing of you can't smile. You have to mean mug in your photos. But look, man, those photos aren't for you. Mama and them want to see you smiling in those pictures.
You're having a good time, right? All your friends are watching. What's the point of trying to look tough for a camera in front of your friends? They know you're a goofball. They've literally just saw you naked, getting ready to get in the clothes for this picture. Who are we trying to impress? Have fun. That's smile. Caleb Lomavita, I see his roster picture. I go, that's a gentleman I would like to meet. You know?
Yep. Yeah. Aaron makes fun of me for this, but I'm compiling a all smile team. Doug Hodo is the Hall of Fame member of this. Just a great roster picture with a smile. Christian Hall of UAB from last weekend has made his way onto the all smile team. Congratulations, Caleb Lomavita. You are also there. And I'm looking for more this weekend in Clemson, South Carolina. Okay, Steve, let me read off some of the other stuff. Kendall touched on a little something else there, the Vegas tournament. So, Schoch, let me read off some of the stuff, just so listeners know some of the interesting stuff we have on the schedule this weekend, because it is a loaded weekend. So we've got the Globe Life tournament, weekend 3 of that. That's the Kubota College Baseball Series. We've got TCU, A&M, USC, and Arizona State is in that one. We've got a good mid-major series between Liberty and Coastal Carolina, both those teams trying to build what will be postseason resumes. That's a good opportunity there. Rivalry series between Florida and Miami. That's always a chippy series, especially when it's in Coral Gables. It feels like that it is in Coral Gables this time around. UConn is going to Auburn. You like that? Oregon is playing Santa Barbara. So there's that as well. I'm sure there are others I'm missing as I go through the scores page here, but Steve, what of that, if anything, or something else catches your eye a little bit for this weekend?
Yeah, so Florida and Miami is always a series that each year I have to tune into because there's always something going on. Last year it was Blake's year. He just went off this series, and I remember he hit a home run in a big situation, threw up the U to the crowd. The crowd's loving it. People are loving it. Broadcasters like, oh, no one likes that. That was terrible. It's like, no, actually, everybody loved it. It was sick. Really cool moment. So I love that series just because I feel like either way, the teams are going to be pimping home runs and be yelling at the other team. And I always love hearing the broadcasters try to act like, oh, that shouldn't have happened. When in reality, tables are flipped. It's happening the exact same way for the other half inning. And it's like, this is cool. It's like, look, let's just enjoy it the whole time. Understand that the chirpiness is the glory of this series. The fact that, you know, these are college baseball players where after the game, if you put all these guys in a room and just said like, hey, look, you can't be mad about the game. Like, you guys have to be friends. That would happen in a heartbeat because that's how college baseball really is. Like all the guys, these guys go to summer ball and they're playing with guys they play against all year long. It would be silly to actually hate them because you're going to run into them down the line. But this series, it has a lot of that hatred, a lot of that in-state rivalry of, oh, no, we're the better Florida school. Like, if I were a high schooler and recruited, I would have chose the one I'm at right now, not yours. All that stuff. And not to mention the fact that Jack Caglione, Liam Peterson, all these talented guys are going to be there. I'm excited to watch Gage Zeal on the mound. He's a guy who he behaves like a big leaguer. Like, just the way he walks around between pitches, the way he composes himself. I've always been impressed with that. So I just think it's going to be a really good matchup.
Yeah, I'll say this, and I'll be curious, Joe, as the SEC extra guy, if you agree with this. But I kind of feel like this is put up or shut up time for Cade Fisher. You know, the guy from Florida who, you know, was obviously a key bullpen piece for them last year, but moved to the Friday night role and opening weekend. I mean, his stats are crazy. I mean, so he's got 14 strikeouts, 2 walks, and 7 innings of work, but teams are hitting him at a 333 clip. What that tells me is he can miss bats, but when he gets hit, he gets really hit. And I think this weekend for Cade Fisher, if he struggles again, I think for Sully, you've got to get him back to his older role where he actually had success.
Yeah, I could definitely see it. He was against Columbia last weekend a lot better. I think some of the numbers, even the batting average against, are just colored by the fact that he got ambushed by St. John's. Against Columbia, 5 hits and 2 runs, 10 strikeouts.
Better.
5 hits and 5 innings. He's still given up some base runners, but I'm with you on your bigger point. Like, this is a big test for him as the Friday guy. He's still relatively unproven in that role, and whether it's moving him to his previous role in the bullpen, or just sliding everybody up and sliding him back to Saturday. Now, Cags will stay on Sunday. They've decided that's the best way to use him is on Sunday. So maybe you slide him to Saturday, take a little pressure off, see what the kid Liam Peterson has on Friday. Why not?
It certainly seemed like Peterson's been really good. Like very good.
Yeah, he's been as advertised for sure in small samples. Yeah.
It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. Yeah. The kid paints 96-mile-an-hour 2-seamers. Why are you doing that, Liam? That's not fair. There are older people here who played this game a certain way, not like that. Okay.
It reminds me, and hopefully he can come back in the next couple of weeks, but it reminds me of AJ Russell for Tennessee opening weekend, throwing 98-mile-an-hour heaters that are literally just going straight up in the zone. They're starting at your knees, they're ending at your shoulders. Like, good luck. Like, I don't even know how you hit that.
Yeah. It goes to show that they're even highly touted freshman arms that are all kind of thought of similarly can just have such different experiences, because Liam Peterson has looked great. Cam Johnson at LSU has struggled. And then Ethan McIlvain's kind of been in the middle of the two. He's done some good stuff. He's had some struggles with command. And those 3 guys were all guys that we looked at as like, hey, these guys should probably be in pro ball, honestly, in terms of the talent level. And they're in college, and yet they've had 3 very different experiences so far. Yeah,
you almost kind of wonder with Cam Johnson, like his command has been so bad. You almost kind of wonder if he throws this weekend and struggles again. Like if you're Jay Johnson, like what situation can you actually like throw him into when you get in the conference play if he continues to have command like this? I don't know what situation you can throw him into unless you're just up by a lot of runs in a Sunday game. So it could be an interesting storyline if a guy like Cam Johnson's only going to throw, 10 or 12 innings this year because he can't find the zone.
Yeah.
I feel like that's one of the things Coach Johnson does well, though, is like knowing when to put these young guys in and when to test them. And honestly, I feel like he does a really good job of knowing when to let them fail, too, of just letting them out to dry a little bit. Because, for me, those experiences where you're out there and you're walking the house, I know fans hate it. I know coaches hate it. No one hates it more than the guy in the mound. It's the worst experience in the world, probably. And I've been hit by a Cadillac before, and way easier than walking the house. So in doing this, wait,
hold on, back up. What was the?
That's what they were doing. Yeah, that's what they were doing. I was walking into a Weiss grocery store, and there's this gentleman like parked in the fire lane. First of all, illegal. And I was going to get banana bread stuff for pineapple bread pudding with my wife. And this guy just immediately puts it in reverse, backs right into me. I wasn't like dramatic about it, but I did kind of love tap his back windshield a little firmly to let him know that he probably shouldn't. Like, I went airborne for a little bit. Well, only a little bit, but like I moved a solid foot in the air, and I wasn't like that upset about it. I really didn't care. But I was more just like inconvenienced by it. But the guy did follow me into the grocery store, and I caught him like filming me just in case I was going to file insurance stuff or something. So I started acting like I was having back spasms just to really freak the dude out. I was like, you know what? I'm not going to take any of your money. You seem like a nice guy. Your kid's with you, like whatever. But I am going to make you think about this. And you will check the rear view, But anyway, that experience, I would take that 10 days out of 10 days over walking the house. But as a freshman, when you have that experience, hey, this sucks. How are we going to regroup? How are we going to rely on that previous experience to avoid doing it again? Yeah. And I know I went on a bit of a tangent there, but when Kendall mentioned AJ Russell's fastball going straight up, I did lead me to a question. Do you guys think Isaac Newton could explain pitch design? Because I don't know if he could. Like, do you think he could perceive that concept of the pitch looking like it's going up?
Well, first of all, I think we could all agree that Isaac Newton, if we'd have put a baseball in his hand, that dude would have been nasty, just with his understanding of what physics could do. Like that guy could, like, an understanding that, pitch grips aren't necessarily the way you're manipulating the ball. It's exit points for the ball, right? Like, I just think dude would have been a problem, as the kids would say.
I think he sees AJ Russell's ride on his fastball and he goes, you know what? I mentally cannot bear this burden. I'm done. I retire. Yeah. Montana, here I come.
He hangs it up. He's moving.
I mean, I know that night that I saw him, if I was a hitter, like I would have, as a hitter, you're always like, or as a pitcher, I mean, this, you're always going to be confident, right? But it's like if you were on the mound and, Mike Trout came to the plate, you're probably not going, yeah, I'm going to strike this dude out.
Yeah, no, it's not that feel.
All right, here's some inane banter for us. Who was one hitter you went against in college that you were like, oh god, this is going to be bad?
His last name was Shelton. I believe it was Anton. He went to FIU. He was the MVP of the Cape Cod League in 2018, I want to say. I, for the life of me, cannot remember his first name, but anytime I faced him, it was loud, hard contact. You bringing up Spencer Torkelson actually reminded me of a memory of playing against him in the Cape with one of my teammates was a gentleman by the name of Deacon Metters from the University of Alabama. And whenever he pitched to Spencer Torkelson would hit the furthest home runs he could. And there was one game where Deacon Metters finally got him. It looked like, and the umpire, Spencer, I don't know why he took a slider like right down the middle, laid off of it. It should have been strike three, gets called a ball. Next pitch, 500 feet into the woods. And Deacon Metters gets pulled, and the whole time he's like, God, I almost had him. He's letting the umpire have it a little bit. He goes, 4 strikes to this guy? Are you kidding me? It's like, look, that's not fair. But that was another guy who's essentially just walking hard contact.
The player you were looking for there, Schoch, is Austin Shinton.
Okay.
You were close.
Yeah, you were right
It's
on
a lot of sounds.
Billy,
Yeah,
you weren't as bad. Hey, you weren't as bad with names as Syfe is.
Naturally, I didn't want to remember facing him, if I'm being honest.
Yeah.
He was disgusting.
Austin
Good
Shinton,
year.
I remember him.
Good year in AAA last year for Mr. Shinton. An OPS over 1,000 with 29 home runs. So pretty good year. Coming to a big league ballpark near you, it sure seems like. I'm going to talk real quick about a series on the West Coast, and I'm going to plead a little bit of ignorance about these teams just because of my coverage being primarily SEC and having not seen a lot. But I just from a storylines perspective, I'm interested in, and that's Oregon and Santa Barbara. Because we talked about this in the main show recapping last weekend, that there is an opportunity in the Pac-12 right now after Oregon State. We don't really know who the second, third, fourth, fifth best team in the Pac-12 is going to be. So somebody's going to fill in that vacuum. Somebody's going to be in position to host or be a strong 2-seed or whatever. Can Oregon be that team, even with some of the questions we have about them? And then on the flip side of that is, look, Santa Barbara's got the deck stacked against them. They don't have a home field for right now. That's not great. They're having to move games. They've had games moved on them. They've just had to kind of be a little more flexible than they otherwise would want to be so far this season. And has that maybe been reflected in them not having the start they would have looked for? And you have to understand, in the Big West, as much as I'd love it to be different, right now in the Big West, you can't bank on just being really good in your conference and getting into the postseason. If say you finish behind Irvine or someone else in the league title race, although pause, is this the first year of the Big West tournament? Do they have a tournament this year?
That's next year.
Is that next year? We're going to do some, this is good audio. Big West baseball tournament. We're going to get to the bottom of this.
Yeah, I will say real quick while you're searching for that. Oregon is a really intriguing club. I actually like their bullpen depth when I saw them opening weekend. RJ Gordon, who's back from injury, has done a really nice job for them on Friday nights. They've got a really nice piece on the back end of the bullpen, and Michael Friend. And by the way, Schoch, he's a Bozeman, Montana kid. Not many baseball players or pitchers come out of Bozeman. He's really done a nice job. He's got some nice lettuce as his hair. You'll like his lettuce as well. But, they've got some depth in the mound. And then offensively, Jeffrey Hurd's a really good-looking athlete. He's gotten off to a great start for them offensively. So I like Oregon's club. You watch them, and they're not just, you're not just going away, just blown away at just their sheer talent, but it is a very good and kind of solid club overall.
They Big West baseball tournament next year. Kendall was correct on that. So for this year,
that's what I thought, but I was wondering. I was like, maybe not.
So for this year, the only auto bid is coming through winning the regular season title. So if you're Santa Barbara, what if you lose that title race? Well, what if you tie Irvine, but they won the series? So you lose the auto bid, and now it's So I say all that to say,
I wonder if UCSD can make it. I wonder if UCSD can make it this year. Remember last year they won the league by 3 games, but couldn't make the tournament.
Well, right, because
they're out of that transition
year.
They're
transitioning. But
I wonder if they're out of that transition year.
But for Santa Barbara, you're in a position where you kind of, I don't want to say you have to have it, but you certainly can't get swept here on the road. You need to at least grab a game here, because you just don't know how many chances you're going to have.
Yeah, you can't. You go, Chuck.
Oh, I was just going to say, I'm pretty sure the transition is 2 years. Your first 2 years as a new D1 school, you can't compete in the conference tournament, but or the NCAA postseason. But I'm not sure about conference tournaments and things.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever actually seen the actual rule on that, because I feel like it's a revolving door.
They still have another year, so they cannot win the auto bid this year.
Because they've got a pretty decent. They do
have a good team
again.
It reminds me of when Grand Canyon moved up. And Grand Canyon was immediately the best team in the WAC, and it was well, I guess we're just going to have to wait 4 years before we can actually do anything about this. Yeah, exactly.
They were winning the WAC by 5 games, but they couldn't make the tournament. This is the dumbest rule in athletics, by the way.
Well, it certainly doesn't need to be 4 years. There's an argument to be made you make it 2 or something, but it doesn't need to be 4 years, especially.
Well, the whole reasoning. I asked somebody this about 2 years ago, and the whole reasoning is they want to make sure that whatever the school is actually serious about being Division One. I don't know about you, but if you win the Big West 2 years in a row, I feel like you're pretty serious.
Yeah, that sounds pretty serious.
Maybe it's a waiver process where if you prove yourself after 2 years, you can get a waiver, to be eligible. I don't know. Maybe.
Yeah, I like that. I like that idea.
Yeah. Anyway.
See, what we are saying makes way too much sense.
That's right.
Yeah, that's
naturally
too
we cannot
equitable.
do that.
Yeah. All right, fellas. I believe that is a preview episode, taking a look at some of the stuff happening around college baseball this weekend. Just a meaty non-conference weekend. I've always compared this weekend to when the NFL had 4 preseason games, and game number 3 was always like the dress rehearsal game before like game 4 was usually like, all right, the starters just aren't going to play. ACC play starts next weekend, but otherwise a lot of the major conferences gearing up for their conference play kind of take a step back. So this is the best non-conference weekend in terms of everything that we have on offer. So enjoy the baseball, everyone. I hope the weather holds up wherever it is you're going to watch your college games. Thank you to Steve and Kendall for joining us today and filling in for the full crew here, as the travel has made it to where we have a little bit of a skeleton crew, but had a lot of fun with you guys. Thank you to Pitch Logic and S2 Cognition for sponsoring this episode of the D1 Baseball Podcast. We'll talk to you guys.